The title for tonight's message, if you're taking notes, is really a question. It's simply this: am I obsessed? Am I obsessed? Now, you may hear that question and be like, well, I'm certainly not obsessed. But the reality is we all have a human nature that is not perfect, okay? And if you have not experienced obsession for specifically another person or a thing, you probably eventually will, okay? We're just not perfect, okay? And so if this message does not apply to you, if you feel like it does not apply to you right now, I promise you, come on somebody, it is going to apply to you eventually, okay? So the title for tonight's message is, Am I Obsessed? And my question for you is, have you ever been obsessed with something? Right? To be obsessed is to continually think about something, so much so that it consumes your thoughts. It consumes your mind, aka you think about this thing or this person all the time. Your mind is consumed. Now, I can identify with this, okay? And I'm telling on myself here just a little bit, but I mean, just like all of y'all, I've got a sin nature, okay? I've got a sin nature. And so here's the thing. I love to do many things in life. And when people ask me about my hobbies, I could honestly probably give them a list of things that I love to do, okay? I love to play instruments. I love music. I love to play golf. I love to camp. I love to hike. I love to fish. I love to hunt. I love to shoot guns. I love so many things. I love building fires. I love taking care of my lawn. Come on, somebody. Hallie and I just got a house not too long ago, and I am obsessed. On the verge of, I'll admit it, okay? I'm pretty obsessed with my lawn, okay? I want it to look good, all right? And you'll experience that maybe when you get a house, okay? But there's so many things that I love to do, but all these things, I don't do them all at once. I just don't, okay? You see, I find something that I like, and it typically consumes me, right? To where I'm just constantly thinking about that thing. All the videos on YouTube that I'm watching are about that thing, right? I just constantly want to do whatever it is, or I'm constantly thinking about whatever that thing is. And, I really never thought much about it. That is until Hallie and I got married, okay? See, one night, it was probably about 6 months after we got married. Where you at, babe? Hey, okay. It was about 6 months after we got married. Okay, and I don't know why I think I was looking for something specific, but I was sitting here scrolling through her notes on her phone. I don't know if I was looking for past sermon notes or whatever, but either way, regardless, I was scrolling through her notes, and I stumbled upon this title of this note, and I was like, what? What is that? You're laughing, because it's funny, but so I stumbled upon this note, and it was titled Phases. Phases, okay? And you may know where I'm going with this, okay? And I click on this note out of curiosity, like, what the heck is phases, right? And I got the note. I want you to check this out. Where's that note at? My wife has been keeping tabs on all my phases since we got married, right? I'll start something, and then I'll stop doing something, and I'll move on to the next thing, right? I'll be obsessed with something else, and then she's been keeping tabs on it, right? Thanks, babe, right? I have issues too, okay? I've got issues. So she noticed that there were phases of things that I would be into, things that I was pretty much obsessed with, and she would take note of it. But whether it's a pair of shoes, whether it's that TikTok dance that you can't seem to stop doing, whether it's that movie you're dying to watch, whether it's that person that you are extremely interested in, maybe it's the shoes you're trying not to crease, whatever it may be, we all understand this idea of being mentally consumed, or should we say obsessed with something, a thing, a person, or an idea. You see, when things get stuck in our mind, they affect us. They affect us. Another thing that can get in your mind is what we've been talking about in this series, is this idea of the one. Right? This idea of the one. And we're basically talking, like I said, we're talking about dating. We're talking about dating, and you may not call it dating, but you get the point. It's the idea of having somebody that you are interested in romantically, and hopefully they're interested in you as well. If you've ever been interested in somebody, you know that it's kind of like getting that song stuck in your head, right? Anybody have a song that they've had, like, it's just rolling in there, right? And you can't seem to ever stop just humming it or, singing it, whatever. A lot of times when we're interested in another person, it can seem like it's like they're a song stuck in our head. Isn't there a song about that, babe? I'm not going to go there, okay? I'm not going to go there. There's a song about it. I know there is, right? And so no matter how hard you try, this person's just constantly in your mind. And that's totally normal, by the way, and not necessarily a problem, but, someone said, but? It only becomes a problem when a person or the idea of finding the one becomes an obsession. It's no longer just a thought. It's no longer just an interest. It's now transitioned into a full-on obsession. And you've probably seen this happen to people that you know. Y'all, we've all had friends, right? Come on, I know you can relate to me, where all they seem to talk about is their girlfriend or their boyfriend. Like, no matter what conversation that we're having with this specific friend, right, Alonzo? No matter what kind of conversation that we're having, they always seem to redirect the conversation to so-and-so. And it seems like every conversation that we have is just about them. And so how do you know when something or someone becomes an unhealthy obsession? Simply put, this is how. When you have somebody in your life and they're all you think about. Like all you think about. Like you're sitting in math class. Nobody wants to be in math class, okay? You're sitting there at your desk and you're just thinking about her. Come on. Woo! You're just thinking about him, right? You're in English and you're like, all right, why am I even here, right? I already know how to talk, right? And you're just constantly thinking about so-and-so. Or maybe that's not you. Maybe you've got somebody in your life and they're the only person you spend time with, like the only person. Maybe when you have somebody in your life and they're all that you talk about. Or on the flip side, maybe you don't have somebody, right? You don't have somebody in your life. But the idea of the idea of this one or this someone takes up your entire time and energy. Excuse me. Did I just burp? I think I just burped. Oh well. Y'all, never mind, I'm not going to say that either. You know where I was going with that? Yeah. But maybe that's you, right? Maybe that's you tonight. Maybe, and you may be thinking, like, why is that a bad thing, right? It's not like I'm obsessed with stealing puppies or, eating rocks or nothing. Like, that would be a huge problem, okay? Maybe you're like, what's so bad about that? Here's the thing. So much of the world around us tells us and suggests to us that we should be obsessed with somebody. It's all over songs. There's songs about it. Movies make it seem like this is how romance is supposed to be. And they almost make it an expectation that all picture-perfect relationships, right, are ones where both people are obsessed with each other, right? Kind of look like this. Show me this picture right here. Come on. Oh, man. That's cringy, y'all. That's cringy right there, okay? We're just looking for that one that we could just stare into each other's eyes for eternity, right? They're going to get me. I'm going to get them. We're going to do fun stuff together. We're just going to last a lifetime. It's all going to be great. There's not going to be any problems whatsoever. We're looking for the one. Yeah, it's pretty creepy. Okay, you can get off that image. There's nothing wrong with being excited. Hear me clearly. There's nothing wrong with being excited about being with another person or just another person in your life. But when everything else in your life begins to fade away, because of this one person, it's a problem. And here's why. Number one, write this down really quickly. You miss out. This is why it's a problem. You miss out. There's so much to do in this season of your life that you'll potentially miss out because you're obsessed with this other person, this other relationship, or even the idea of a relationship. You'll miss out on chances to make memories with your friends, to have moments with your family and develop your talents. You may even miss out on the chance to learn new things or serve others. In other words, being too focused on any one thing, whether it's a person, relationship, or hobby, is never a good idea because you'll miss out on some really important things. But not only that, number two, you alienate people. You alienate people. Understand that your friends do notice when they are no longer a priority. And many of us, we've experienced this. Like, hands down, every time so-and-so gets in a relationship, I guarantee I won't hear from him for the next 3 months. But this is what tends to happen when we become consumed with obsession for another person. And this takes a toll on your friendships. So you miss out, you alienate people. But number three, you lose yourself. You lose yourself. Tying up so much of your life in someone else can cause you to lose sight of who you are becoming. Remember in part one, we talked about how it's better to drop the magnifying glass and focus on the mirror. God's not going to talk to you about the other person. He's going to talk to you about you. We need to know who we are becoming. You might find yourself losing a sense of your identity and your uniqueness. You may find yourself only listening to music that they like. You didn't like country music before. Shoot. Right? You find yourself spending less time on your hobbies or not acting like yourself. And look, there's no judgment here, okay? We've all experienced it or will more than likely experience it. It's easy to become obsessed, but if we want to live a full life, we cannot be consumed by obsession. It causes us to miss out. And so what do you do when you find yourself obsessing over someone? We're going to go back to the book of Proverbs. We looked at Proverbs in part one, right? And we're going to go back there. This is a book that was mostly written by a king named Solomon. He was a famous king of Israel, okay? And so we're going to go back to some wisdom that he talks about. And I love this, okay? Proverbs 25, verse 16 says this: if you find honey, eat just enough. Why? Because too much of it, and you will vomit. If you find honey, eat just enough. Why? Because if you eat too much, you might vomit. He's basically saying that if you get too much of something, even good things, it can become a bad thing. Now, I can relate to this, y'all, and many of you can relate to this as well. I can relate to this on a deep level every time I go out to a restaurant, right? Every single time. I don't know when I will learn, okay? But every time I go to a restaurant, I end up leaving more miserable than when I went in. Why? Because I ate too much. I ate way too much. I overcompensated for what I thought I could handle. I didn't need a 48-ounce steak. But I got it anyways, right? Because it looked good. And I leave feeling sick. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And so how do you know where the line is when it comes to dating? How do you know where the line is when it comes to your interest in someone? When does it go from good to too much? Well, in order to figure this out, we're going to look at a passage found in the book of Ephesians, okay? And Ephesians was written by a man named Paul who wrote a lot of the New Testament, and he says this, okay? In Ephesians 5, verse 15, he says this, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise." Paul is basically saying, pay attention to how you're living your life. Don't just let life happen to you. As you choose how to live, wise is better than unwise. Obviously, right? Obviously, wise is better than unwise. And using words like wise and unwise when it comes to dating, I love it because it's almost perfect, right? Often, having a significant other in your life isn't necessarily always about right and wrong, right? I would venture to say it's more about wisdom, right? And all wisdom is basically saying what's best. What is best for me right now in this situation? What is best? Now, if your parents have strictly banned it and said you can't date, that's a whole nother thing. God calls us to honor our parents and our guardians, okay? That's a whole nother story. But if you have the freedom in this season of your life to date, we're not going for right or wrong, we're going for wise or unwise. Paul is saying, pay attention to what you do and do your best to make the best and wisest choice. This principle can be applied to just about anything, right? It can be applied to your friendships, school, right? It can be applied to your schedule or your screen time habits or any of these types of things. But for the sake of today's conversation, here are two questions to ask yourself when it comes to dating. And the first one is this. At what point does a healthy interest in someone or the idea of dating become an unwise obsession? At what point does this idea become an unhealthy or an unwise obsession? And then the second is this. If that point is somewhere between being interested in someone and being obsessed with someone, where am I currently? Where am I currently in this picture? You see, while relationships don't have obvious labels of interest or obsession, they do have signs. They do have signs. Check this out. Try not to drop this. That looks good, huh? I spent a lot of time on this. Hopefully you can see it. Hey. If not, you can kind of adjust, but all of us typically, when it comes to this other person, we find ourselves in this category. One in between interest and obsession, okay? And so I want to help kind of identify this for a second, okay? And maybe you can relate with one of these. I would say following somebody on Instagram. That would be more, I would call that more interest. Liking and commenting on every single one of their posts and their stories today and from the beginning of history, okay? That is by far, come on y'all. Obsession. Hanging out with somebody after school. That ain't necessarily a bad thing. I would say that would be more interest. Maybe just want to get to know them. Canceling plans with friends. Neglecting to do your homework. Just so that you can hang out with so-and-so. Y'all, what is it? What is it? Obsession. You guys are getting good at this. In every relationship, in every person's life, there are, you could call flags, right? And many of us, y'all, there are multiple red flags. But out of the sake of this is true love, which it's not, out of the sake of just being in a relationship because you're lonely, we tend to ignore the red flags. Paul, he continues. So he said, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but wise. And he continues and he says this, making the most of every opportunity. Ephesians 5:6, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Now you may be thinking, like, are the days actually evil? Like, is Paul talking about a zombie apocalypse here? No, not necessarily. In the original language, when Paul is referencing evil here, this word here means annoying, difficult, or time-consuming. So what is Paul saying? In other words, your time gets taken up by so many things anyways. We have to make the most of what we have left. Paul's referring to our tendency to waste time in unwise ways. And many of us, we can relate to this. We had a break from school. We had the day off. We completely wasted it. And then time goes by and we're like, man, I wish I would have had that time back. Why? Because I wasn't making the most of every opportunity. Paul wants us to make the most of our time here on earth. And these are some of the most unique years of your life. There's going to be a time in your life where you look back on these days and you'll realize that the friendships and the relationships that you had today actually mattered. They matter. And I promise that you will not want to look back and say, man, I missed that time with my friends because I was always with my boyfriend or my girlfriend. Or, man, it sounds like fun, but I remember being miserable a lot of the time because that person I crushed on was dating somebody else. Understand that you have a chance to make the most of this time right now. Allowing God to move in and through you. You have this moment, this day, today, right now, here in your life, to encourage other people. To encourage your friends who go home every night and cry in their pillow because they're lonely. God has a plan for you, but that plan does not revolve only around you. And it wasn't until I understood this that God began to really shape and move in my life. It's not all about me. Can God use you right now? Or do you have other things going on? Like in part one, we talked about how, or it was last series, you'll never get over what God does through you. But how can he do anything through you if you never make room for him? And you can let this fly by and you can just let this, that ain't me, right? But in 6 months when you feel miserable, I hope that you understand that it's Jesus that you need. It's Jesus that you need. And only him, not the other person. They do not have the capacity nor the ability to fulfill you, to complete you. You go in a jacked up person, you're going to leave a messed up person, right? That's just the way that it is. And so to summarize Paul's words in the context of dating, here's one way that you can think about it. To make the wisest choice with the time you have, don't let anyone become your everything. Don't let anyone become your everything. And now we're talking about somebody that is flesh and blood just like you. Do not let another person become your everything. Now, it's not a knock on the person that you're interested. Whoo, I bet she's great. I bet he's fantastic, right? But if your dating life is holding you back from the rest of your life, we may need to think about some things. And so here's what that could look like. If you are currently in a relationship right now, do not abandon the rest of the world around you. Do not abandon the rest of the world around you. Prioritize all of your important relationships. Don't ditch your friends. Don't abandon your family. Don't lose interest in the things that you used to enjoy. But not only that, secondly, if you aren't dating anyone, stop thinking your life can't be good unless you start dating. And if that is you, the best advice that I can give you is to keep your head down and chase after Jesus. Right? Chase after him with all that you have. Give him your full focus. Give him your full attention. Chase after him with every amount of breath, with every amount of strength that you have. And just do that for a while. And at some point, look up and see who's around you. And if you see someone fantastic, put your head back down and keep going. Keep chasing after Jesus. 6 months passes, lift your head back up. Is someone next to you? Sweet, cool, hey, keep on going towards Jesus. And when you feel like you get to the place where your relationship with Jesus is the most fruitful that it's ever been. It's not perfect. You're not perfect, right? But you're spending time with him. You're actually worshiping. You're actually praying. You're actually serving other people. You're a part of what God's doing in and through the earth, through the local church. You're not just attending youth group. You're actually getting involved on a Sunday morning. Then look up. If someone's next to you, say hi. What's up? You like movies? Like ice cream? I do too. Don't feel like you're missing out on something because you don't have a relationship. God can do so much in and through you. God has everything that you need in him. And the thing I love about God, guess what? He always gives us what we need. If you do not have a relationship right now, I'm willing to bet it's because you don't need it. God ain't going to leave you high and dry. Which leads to the next one. Trust God with your future, the future of your relationships. Trust God with the future of your relationships. Understand that God sees you. He understands that desire that you have. But he also knows what's best for you in this season. Trust that he has your best in mind. And then lastly, ask someone you trust if you're truly obsessed. This could simply look like asking your youth leader, hey, do you feel like I'm really close to obsession or past it? This is kind of what's going on. Do you feel like I fall more in the category of interest or obsession? And allow them to speak into that. And if they say yes, man, praise God that somebody loved you enough to be able to tell you. And then have them just help you. Figure out new habits. Figure out new ways to think. New conversations to start having. And as we head out, I want you to remember that I'm not saying don't date. Okay? I'm not saying don't have a crush, but I am saying don't miss out on what God wants to do in and through you right here, right now, because you're so obsessed with another person. Don't let anyone become your everything. And if that's you tonight, tell somebody. Just like Paul cared about the people he was writing to, every single leader in this place cares about you just as much. And we all want to see you live life to the full potential that God has for you. And when we fix our focus where it needs to be, when we Choose to be wise and not let obsession take over us. There's nothing like it. We're laying a foundation. We're set up for God to really do something amazing in and through us. Trust him. Let's pray.